Hey guys, and welcome to the first episode of season 2, the season premiere of Getting Back Up with me, Anthony Ogogo. Before we start, I want to say a massive thank you to the team, Lawrence, Paul, Ollie, the guys at Progressive. A lot of hard work goes into making these episodes, delivering these episodes for you guys to be inspired by and to deliver more hope into your lives. So massive thank you to the team. So this is a special Ask Me Anything edition where you guys have asked me anything. I've got some great questions here that I'm going to get into. I also want to round up the previous series because, when someone comes on and they talk to me, oftentimes we talk about like the tough times of their life and career. Sometimes it gets very, very personal, as we found with Trish Dixon last year, Mitchell Greenaway as well. Sam Water. Most podcasts, people talk about the hardest part of their life. And it's hard. It's hard to be the one asking the questions because, again, as I said, it's the tough part of their life. And oftentimes we don't want to just open up all our dark, deeper secrets. But I want to show my gratitude by kind of going over them again. And I think, the hope of this podcast is people listen to these podcasts and they can see similarities. They can see that this person overcame so much and was successful. Therefore, there's no reason why I can't as well. So I am going to try to get through all the podcasts in season 1 and take my snippets, my takeaways from what they said. But that being said, we're going to start with the first question I got today, this week. The first question was from Pavel. If I had to choose which era of wrestling would I like to step into, the 80s, the Big Daddy and ITV World of Sport era, Big Daddy, Giant Haystacks, the 90s of the WWF era, or today? Oh, that's a great question. I think it's quite an easy one though. I mean, it's got to be the 90s, the Attitude Era. WWF back in the day, got The Rock, Stone Cold, Undertaker, Mankind, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels. Got so many stars. And I'm a student of the game. Anything that I do, I want to do to the best of my ability. It was first boxing, it's now wrestling, it's now fitness stuff, it's now podcasting. I try to learn and study. Every day is a school day. And I want to learn as much as possible because I think knowledge, we can lose our house, we can lose our car, we can lose our money, we can lose pretty much everything. But we don't lose what's up here. So I always try to invest in myself. And there's me again going on a mad tangent. You want to know a wrestling question? I'm talking about losing things or retaining things more importantly. But I think, I watch wrestling all the time and to learn. And the Attitude Era, the late WWF before it came WWE. I mean, that stuff is unbelievable. You go back and watch some matches. Someone like D'Lo Brown is so over. And for non-wrestling fans, the term over means the fans really care about you. They either love you and they cheer, or they hate you and you boo. So you can be a bad guy and be really over. If you get everyone, if people are throwing things at, it was crazy. You'd have at the end of the pay-per-view matches, they'd be throwing cups and throwing things into the ring at the bad guys. If the bad guys won, I think those guys they earn a lot of money. I think back in America, they had the Nielsen's rating. I think that's what they kind of do, the TV rating. And back in the 90s, they'd have 10 million people watching wrestling. 10 million people watching WWF, WCW on a Monday night. Nowadays, it's a fraction of that because the world has changed. Because now we have Sky Plus, or they call it DVR in the US. You can record things. There's so much more choice. So I think the golden era was the Attitude Era. Saying that, right now, wrestling right now, AEW, what we do on a weekly basis, we've got 2 live TV shows. Some of the stuff that we do. The wrestling is better now. The athleticism is better now. The astonishing things that the wrestlers can do is better now because, like anything, it's evolved. But if you could drop me into any era of wrestling, I think it would be in the Attitude Era. So great question, Pavel. Next question, what we got? Ollie, did you get nervous before a big fight? If so, what strategies did you use to stop nerves affecting your performance? And have you used them to cope with other challenges in your life? Great question, Ollie. Did I get nervous? Ooh. Did I get? I mean, I did and I didn't. I mean, nerves aren't a bad thing. Oh, Rocky. As you're saying that, I haven't even tried to find this quote. There's a Rocky Balboa in Rocky 5, which many people think is the worst Rocky. I don't mind Rocky 5. I just love Rocky. Rocky 5.
Who's your best friend back in Orlando? Oh, that's Oklahoma. Bellew, yeah. Eric Elder. No. Your best friend is a guy named Frankie Fear. You see, fear is a fighter's best friend. You know, there ain't nothing to be ashamed of. See, fear keeps you sharp. It keeps you awake. You know, it makes you want to survive. You know what I mean? But the thing is, you got to learn how to control it, all right? Because fear is like this fire, all right? And it's burning deep inside. Now, if you control it, Tommy, it's going to make you hot. But you see, if this thing here, it controls you, it's going to burn you and everything else around you up. That's right, you know. Anyway, these are the things that was taught to me.
Frankie Fear is your best friend. I think it's fear and nerves is the same thing. I boxed a few times when I was younger, and I didn't get very nervous, and I didn't box very well. Luckily, I always won, I believe. But when you have that little bit of fear, it keeps you sharp. As Rocky was saying, it keeps you, makes you burn better. I remember, but then again, if you're too anxious, if you're too nervous, that nervous energy eats you up. And I spoke to Brian O'Driscoll about this in episode 5. I boxed in Beijing at the Olympic test event in 2007, and I boxed a French kid, and he beat me 29-26. I lost by 3 points, and I boxed dreadfully. And that French lad went on to win a medal at the Olympics the following year. Had I beaten him, I'm pretty sure I'd have got selected to go to the qualifier, and I could have went on and maybe medaled in 2008 in Beijing. Wasn't to be. I lost to the French lad, and I let my energy consume me. I was so fit. I was so strong. I was on top of my game, physically. But when I got to the ring, there's a four round fights back then. When I got to the ring, I was tired. I was fucked. I had no energy. So it was such a big occasion for me. This was like the make or break point. Do I go to Beijing? Do I not go to Beijing? If I do well over here, I'll be on the plane to the qualifier. If I don't, I won't. And I let this nervous energy eat me up. And I got in the ring, and I was shot to bits on round 1. I had no energy. I was gasping for breath. I was hanging over the rope. Very unlike me, because nerves got the better of me. So that was 2007. After that, I really controlled my nerves. I made sure I was a little bit nervous because it's life or death. Boxing, you can die in a boxing ring. It's very, very serious. But I didn't let it eat me up. So I guess I did get nervous. How did I control them? I think this is one of the formulas for life. I always walked to the ring very confident because I put the work in the gym. I trained really hard. There's 1 or 2 fights I always trained really hard. And that's probably my downfall. I think I trained too hard. I didn't rest enough. And if I knew what I knew now, I'd be more selective when I train. Especially as you get older. You don't recover as quick. You can't train. You can train as hard. You can train harder when you get older. But you can't train as much. You got to kind of bring it down a little bit. Know when to rest. Pick and choose when to go hard. So I think I overtrained a bit as a youngster when I was a bit younger, and I had certain injuries. Therefore, I couldn't train as much. I couldn't spar as much. I couldn't run because I had some bad Achilles for many, many years. There's a couple of times I walked to the ring and I was nervous because I knew I hadn't put the work in. Not through no fault of my own, but I couldn't train the way I wanted to train. And then there's other days when I fought better opponents and I walked to the ring, training camp had gone amazingly well, and I was so supremely confident because I put the hard work in. And I think that's the fact of life. If you work hard, if you put the work in, you work really, really hard, then nothing to be worried about. And I'd always spar with better people than I was boxing. I sparred with Carl Froch and George Groves and real top fighters. Then when I was fighting people, they weren't as good. So I'd think, hang on, Carl Froch is strong, he's rugged, had been a world champion for the last 4 years, punches really hard. George Groves, world champion, punches really hard. The guys I'm boxing, they're not going to punch as hard as them, not going to be as good as them. So you kind of like make training, was it the sayings, train hard and you fight easy. The harder you train, the easier the fights get. So that's pretty much how I did that, Ollie. And in life now as well, when I do podcasts, I get actually kind of nervous doing podcasts because, as I said earlier, I'm talking to people about their lives. I'm bringing their lives into the world, and I want to do their lives justice because I know how much hard work it goes into being successful. So, like that, I train hard, and in podcast terms, I over research. I make sure I know lots of different stuff because I want to be ready. Same thing with my fitness app. I watch, like this morning I was watching stuff on female hormones. Doesn't really affect me, but I want to know about this stuff in case if I come up against this, I know how to deal with it. So I want to know everything basically. I want to learn everything, and yeah, that's how I deal with the nerves. Make sure I'm over prepared. A couple more questions before I go into the roundup. Amanda, what motivates? This I saw this one earlier, and hadn't seen the previous one, but I saw this one earlier. Amanda, what motivates you to keep you going, and have you ever been tempted to settle for a quieter life? Oh, that's a great question. I love questions where you've got to think rather than just boom, boom, boom. No, the answer's already kind of stored in my head. I've said it 1,000 times. I've never had this question before. What keeps me going? I want to be great. I want to be great. I want to be remembered for all my good things, not the bad things. So I want to be great. In my boxing days, I want to be the Britain's best ever middleweight boxer. That was my goal. When I turned pro, there'd been 5 world championships, 5 world middleweight champions in the history of boxing from Britain. And I think combined, that had 7 successful defenses in the middleweight division. Now, my goal when I turned pro was to become a combined best. I wanted to become middleweight champion in the world and have 10 defenses. Bernard Hopkins had 20 in middleweight defenses. I wanted 10 because that would have meant I was better than all the previous middleweight British boxers in history. So that was my goal. And I thought if I do that, I've got to go down as the best middleweight boxer from Britain ever. Obviously, I didn't get there with the injuries, had to retire. But I always set big goals. I always set myself big goals. I want to be remembered. I want to be great. I want to look back and talk to my kids and tell my grandkids, I did this. Oh, granddad did that and granddad did this. And that kind of drives me. Essentially, I just want more than what I saw growing up. Come from a small town, single parent family, mum, 4 sisters, house full of women. And I saw my mum work so unbelievably hard. Psychiatric nurse, carer, dinner lady, to juggle 2-3 jobs at the same time whilst raising 5 kids, one of them being me, and I was a handful. And I saw her work so hard. And I remember going to Safeway supermarket, and my mum didn't drive after a while. She had a car crash. She didn't drive after a while. We'd walk all the way into town, all the way back, carrying these shopping bags, and the plastic bags would cut into our hands. And every Saturday morning we'd do that. And we'd go to the supermarket, and as I said, my mum, her work ethic is unbelievable. She's my hero. I've said it 1,000 times. We'd go to supermarkets, and mum would buy like yellow sticker items because they were cheap and they were reduced, and we didn't have a lot of money. And I just used to think, my mum works so hard. How can she not have nice things? Never buys herself anything. Always provides for the kids. How? That's not fair. That's not fair. So I've always wanted to buy my mum a house. I failed thus far, but I've still got a lot of life to live. Fingers crossed. And I always wanted more than I saw essentially. And that's what's been always motivated me to keep going. Have I been tempted to settle for a quiet life? Yeah, I have. Another quick little story. My mate, one of my best mates, passed away a few years ago. Only 30 years old, Dave Chapman. My best mates in the world from being a kid until we were 30. Bladder cancer, died at 30. It's soul destroying. Just broke everyone's heart who knew him. Just so sad. And I hadn't said it for a while. I'm getting choked up just talking about it. And Chapo, he worked in Asda. He stacked shelves on a night in Asda. Huge West Ham fan. Get the train down to London to watch West Ham every single home game, the odd away game. Massive West Ham fan. And his life was very simple. It's quiet. He'd stack shelves in Asda on a 2-3 times a week, 4 times a week. And then he'd go to West Ham, come back, and he'd go out with the boys Friday, Saturday night. His life is really simple, and he was so happy. And And I wanted that happiness. And I used to think, God, I wish I could, there's been times where I used to think I have these massive dreams and aspirations, and oftentimes, like, when you fall short because of injury or whatever, it's hard. I've gone through some real difficult times because my goals were so lofty. And there's been times I used to think, but if only I had aspirations to live that kind of life. But I don't. And there's nothing wrong in that. If I did that, I mean, it would be great at first, but then I'd want more, I'd want more. I did Celebrity SAS Who Dares Wins earlier this year, and it's going to air next year. And I got the pictures back today, actually, to say if they're okay. Just to go, yes or no. And some of the things I did, I'd forgotten. I'd forgotten some of the things I can't talk about, so I'll get in trouble. But some of the things I did, and it's like, oh my goodness, like, wow. Like, they're things that, I got punched in the head a lot, so my memory isn't the best. But they're things that I can tell my grandkids about, I want to say, but I can't say. But yeah, I mean, a quieter life. One day, when I've achieved my goals, and when I've done it, I can then go, now, a couple of beers, friends, family, glass of wine at night, I'll be more than happy, but I'm not quite there yet. Great question, Amanda. Thank you. And Ben, before I move on to the sign-ups of each episode, Ben, how likely is the boxing match between me and Jake Paul? So I'm going to come back to that one. That's not going to be a short one. I'm going to come back to that. Thank you, Ben. I'm going to come back to that one. So some great guests on season 1. Tony Bellew, who's been a friend of mine for a long, long, long time. He came on. He spoke to me. I've known him for a long time, as I said. He spoke to me in a way I've never heard him speak before. He's always been very candid and open, but I guess because we have a kinship, we've traveled the world together, he spoke even more open and honest. And a couple of things stood out for me. Jealousy. He's never been jealous. Even when his career wasn't going to plan and he was stuck at British title level, others were doing really well, and others, our teammates won medals at the Olympic Games, and he didn't. In his own words, he wasn't good enough to win a medal at the Olympic Games. So he turned pro. He was never jealous, always happy for people. And, and I love that because I've been jealous. I've been bitter. When my eye was bad and these guys were boxing and becoming world champions and I know I'm better than them, I spiraled down into a deep, dark depression. It was really unfair. And I thought, I know being jealous is like eating poison, drinking poison, and expecting the other person to get sick. No. That's not how it works. Jealous is bad. Envy is bad. And I knew that, but I just couldn't get rid of it. And it was really important. He said some real special stuff around jealousy. Then he spoke about people being jealous of him. And his exact words were, why would anybody be jealous of what I've got? I've worked my bollocks off. You wouldn't be jealous because you wouldn't do it. Because you couldn't. Because you're not willing to persevere through the shit I've persevered through. No one gets nothing for nothing. And I guess what he's saying is, people look at his life and could be jealous of what he's got. The nice house, the flash watch, the nice cars. But if you knew what he went through to get it, you wouldn't be jealous because you wouldn't have done the stuff he did. We mentioned we went to all around the world as amateur boxers, getting our head punched in by the best boxers in the world. Little gloves. Oh, goodness me. Over and over and over again. It's hard when you got to lose a stone, 2 stone, 2.5 stone in training camp. Losing weight is hard. But losing weight whilst you're sparring, getting punched in the head, in your ribs, in the face, it's hard. The sleepless nights, the waking up before your alarm clock because you're so eager to fight, is hard. So, yeah, jealousy with Tony Bellew. Plus, there's so much stuff in that podcast as well. Sam Ward, I'll be quick on this one. Sam Ward, a great podcast. Sam went blind in his visually impaired, in one eye. His story is very, very similar to mine. The only difference, he got back to playing. He's now been to one Olympics, probably going to go to the next Olympics as well next year. Hopefully he does. He's playing the best hockey of his life, even though he's visually impaired now. He said, "Two-eyed Sam was a wanker. One-eyed Sam was a good guy." He said he'd give anything, all the money he's got, to get his sight back in both eyes, but not if it would change the outcome or change the person he's become. He's literally turned the worst thing to happen to him into the best thing. He's now a real nice guy, way more humble than he was before. And that's the thing about life. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And that is it sounds simple, but it's still so hard. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And Sam got a hockey ball smashed in his eye. Every right to be bitter, pissed off, angry, lost the vision in his eye. Went through a lot of rehab, doubted in himself, went into the Priory to get help because he needed help. That could be a really bad thing in his life. But he looks at it now, and it's now the best thing that's happened to him. Just change him as a person, and we all go through stuff. If we all have that mindset and that outlook on things, life would be much better. We'd grow a lot quicker, I think. So thank you, Sam, for coming on. Cheers, Dixon. I love this one. I love this one a lot. Tris, we went there. Tris, a real deep, emotional guy. And for me, the thing about Tris was like, the takeaway I took from Tris's podcast, and there's loads of takeaways in there, and we've got to get him back on. Tris, you've got to come back on, mate, because there's so much we never even touched upon, because you're such a great dude. My takeaway was, you don't know what someone's going through. You have no idea the shoes that other people walk in. As put in his life, he was the editor of Boxing News. I think the youngest editor ever. Boxing News, the most famous boxing magazine on the planet. He was the top guy. He mentioned it to being like, the Godfather. In The Godfather, they came to him. He was the man. One of the most powerful men in British and world boxing. But in his personal life, he was struggling. He was suicidal, having suicidal thoughts every single day. You just don't know what people are going through. And I thought about it. When he was obviously already going through these suicidal thoughts on a daily basis, he's got a long commute from the South Coast up to London and back every single day. Imagine if, he got into an argument with some guy and some guy said something quite cutting to him, because Tris is very open with he has some issues with the way he looks and feels, which I think is mad, because he's looking, he was like a Greek god. Oh goodness, he has muscles on top of muscles. I feel inferior sitting next to Tris. But he has issues, right, about the way he looks, and like we all do, I guess. And, one comment from a random guy or girl could have made him go home and, take those suicidal thoughts to the edge, to the next step. So I think it's really important, just be nice to people, be kind to people. At the very least, don't be a dick. You have no idea what people are going through. So that is my massive takeaway from Tris Dixon. But there's so much more. Tris, come back on the episode and let's talk about your trips to America, like chasing down old fighters, former world champion. The books he's written. He's a legend. Mitchell Greenaway, former therapist, now my friend, a lovely, lovely woman. I've had as many messages of, wow, amazing podcast about this podcast as I have the famous people, the Brian O'Driscolls, the Tony Bellews, honestly. A lot from women as well. So female, listen to this, go back and listen to Mitchell's Greenaway. Also men as well. Mitchell got sexually abused as a kid in the Caribbean when she was living with her grandparents. And for me, so my takeaway from this was, I think we're all born to shine. I think we're all born to excel as people, shine as children do in that famous poem. What's your greatest fear? We were born to shine like children do. And she shone. She was great at sport, great at singing, lead singer in the choir. And that's where she got spotted by a sexual predator. And that's where he took advantage of her, because she stood out. And she, obviously subconsciously, presumably, as a kid, maybe consciously, I don't know, she withdrew. She took a step back in life. And when she got good at things, she made sure she wasn't quite so good. She admitted she was one of the best netball players in the country, one of the best athletes in the country. When she got really good, something maybe some self-sabotage, because she, from her young brain, linked, when you excel, not great things happen. And that's really sad, because think of someone like that, where she could have been in her life as an athlete, if that hadn't happened. I know she's got really talented daughters as well. One of her daughters used to play for Arsenal Football Club as well. And I just think, and then, she was a young mother, teenage mother, 18 years old. She had 3 kids, 2 different dads by the age of teens, early 20s, dropped out of college. She could have been a statistic. Yet she changed her life around, and now she's a boss. Now she bosses her personal life. She bosses her professional life. She's massively inspired me. I'm now on my own journeys outside of the sport because of her, because she's going to set me on this path. She's an absolute legend. I think the world of her. And this is a really incredible story. So jump back and listen to this. Thank you, Mitchell, so much. Brian O'Driscoll, what a legend. Brian's takeaway for me, he enlightened me. He's a guy that I look up to, literally one of the best rugby players who ever played the game. And when he retired, he really struggled. And I was surprised by that, because I retired from boxing without reaching my Mount Olympus. In the amateurs and in the pros, I got injured, had to retire. Before I got to my peak, Brian had a long peak. He did pretty much everything you could do as a rugby player. 4 times on the Lions captain, one of the most capped players in the world, a legend in his sport. And when he retired, he really struggled. And that really made me think, it just enlightened me, and how he overcame that. Because when you look at Brian O'Driscoll, he's someone that he looks like he's got all his stuff together. And it's just nice to see a guy who is up here admit to struggling, admit to being vulnerable, because when they do that, it gives us the strength to also say, yeah, listen, I found that hard, but I sought help. I found it hard, but boom, 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 and he overcame. And he left me with a quote, which I've said this numerous times. And Brian, I always give you the credit, although I know you heard it from somebody else, but you get the credit when I say this. Always believe your best days are yet to come. That's hope. And I think in life, we always need a little bit of hope. Hence this podcast, giving people hope. Hope that no matter how bad days are now, good days are yet to come. Your best days are yet to come. And it's not up to us to figure it out. No. We just work hard. We do what we do. Keep your head up. Work hard. Be nice to people. And by doing so, opportunities will come. That's what I believe. Callum Knight, CPK. What a nice guy this guy is. By the way, he just got married in Las Vegas to a beautiful new wife. So congrats, Callum. Well done, big man. I didn't get the invite. I'm a little bit annoyed about that, but let's catch up soon. Callum Knight, listen, my takeaway from Callum was, he went through a tough time as a young kid, lost his mother when he was a teenager, and his mum is very young when she had him, very young. So they're quite close in age actually. So they were like best friends. He had to raise, along with his grandparents, he had to raise his little sister. A lot for a kid to take on. Callum, he went on to, he played games. He played games when his mum was ill and when she died, and that's, I guess, how he kind of coped with it. 10 years later, he's one of the biggest stars in the world, one of the biggest gamers in the world. He gets his name chanted in London, in Amsterdam, in LA, all around the world. He had his face on Piccadilly Circus. He's a superstar in the gaming world, in the YouTube world, in the Minecraft world. 2 or 3. So I don't want to do you wrong here. 2 or 3 time Guinness World Record breaker. What a nice guy, man. What a nice guy. All potentially stemming from the passing of his mother. Again, when you turn the worst thing to happen to you to the best thing to happen to you, that's how you be successful in life. So Callum, thank you so much, mate. You're a legend, mate. I really think the world of you. Kane Kawasaki, episode 7, had Kane, a cultural commentator, a British black historian. But also, there's something I want to talk about Kane, about Kane's podcast. But also, Kane's story in itself is very inspiring. Kane was a school teacher, very comfortable job, And during COVID, when everyone was stuck at home, he retired from teaching to teach in a different way, to become a TikTok star. He backed himself, an Instagram star. He now teaches Black history to people that need to everyone, because I think we all need to learn about Black history is history, part of Britain. If everyone understood it, there'd be no racism. And Kane, I respect Kane for backing himself. As I mentioned, quitting a very secure job to go out on his own into the world of social media, and he's killing it. He's absolutely killing it. What a nice guy. And what I love about Kane, I have a chat. I've got a couple of friends. I've got some friends, 50s, lovely people. I'm not going to mention names, but lovely guy. He called me 2 weeks ago when he listened to the Kane Kawasaki podcast. He's white. He's does well for himself financially. He doesn't understand race. We had a conversation in the summer about race, and there's a few beers involved. It got juicy, and he just didn't understand. I was trying to teach, I was trying to explain, and we lived very different lives, me and this guy and his wife. But again, both lovely people, and we were talking. Didn't really get it, and it was like, whatever. And I said, there's a few beers in by this point, and then the Kane episode dropped, and I sent it to him. Hey mate, listen to this. And I felt a bit nervous doing it because I didn't want to kind of like open up a can of worms. And then didn't hear anything for a few days. Then he called me. Now we've got a mutual friend, and my first thought was, oh my god, our mutual friend, what's happened? Because we text, we don't call. And I answered really apprehensively, and he was like, oh mate, just want to say that podcast, wow mate, blew my mind. I learned so much from that. He said I was going to text you, but I thought no. Sometimes in life you got to give somebody a call. I was very sorry for the conversation we had. I understand now. I get it. And I was like, wow, my whole body tingled through. Like, I was just so happy. I said, oh, mate, thank you so much. I said, oh, mate. I said, thank you so much. And that was like 53 seconds the phone call was, because I checked. And I thought, how can such less than a minute leave me with such a happy feelings for the whole day? And even now, when I'm saying, I'm sure you can, if you watch this, you can see my smile. If you're hearing this, you can hear the smile in my face. Because Kane teaches so well, explains what racism is about, explains it. And like the most racist person on the planet, listen to Kane, listen to that podcast and go, oh, I see. So yeah, thank you, Kane, for you being you and for being so great. Brilliant podcast. 8 and 9, Ash Dykes, what a guy. Ash Dykes, goodness me, Ash Dykes. I've got a question. I'm going to answer the question now, actually. Somebody asked a question, which story is the most unbelievable? Like, unbelievable, ridiculous story that you've had on thus far on the podcast? Ash Dykes, without a shadow of a doubt. It's mad. The things that this man has done, ridiculous. 3-time world first record holder. I guess you can't break a record when you're the first person to ever do it. The most nicest, likable dude in the world. When you hear the things he's done, and you look at him and hear him talk and spend time with him, you think, how have you done that? It's like, he seems so normal. When I think of extreme anything, I think you've got to be a bit of a lunatic. He seems so nice and so normal. Although it does say about it takes 2 weeks to become a wild man. The wild man in him. It takes 2 weeks for him to become this wild man, doing all this crazy mad stuff. But the biggest takeaway, literally, is this is why I called the podcast Getting Back Up. Ash said he was going to die. There's no two ways about it. If he didn't make it to the next village, the next community, where there's water, where there's food and shelter, he was going to die. He was 5 or 6 days away, so he had a little radio. If he pressed SOS, it would take 5 or 6 days for the SOS team to come and get him. By that point, he was going to be dead. He walked past camel carcasses when he was walking through the Gobi Desert. Camel carcasses aplenty. And he knew. And what he would do is, in such pain, is pulling his trailer, walk in the desert. He'd seek refuge underneath the trailer for 5 minutes. If he spent more than 5 minutes there, he would not have got back up. And in a few months' time, he would have been and Ash Dyke's carcass, dead. So he knew, and what he said was, he knew he couldn't walk another 500 meters. 500 miles, but he could walk 100 meters, and that's what he did. 100 meters, stopped. 5 minutes underneath his trailer, he saw refuge. Back up, 100 meters, so on and so forth. And the takeaway is, you haven't got to see the whole staircase in life. You haven't got to. You've just got to see that first step. And he said, if he didn't keep getting back up, he would have died. And that, for me, that right there is what this podcast is all about. When we look too far ahead, when we look back, we get depressed. When we look forward, we get anxious. We've got to be in the present. And we can all look an hour ahead, 2 hours ahead, a day ahead. Stay in the present, listen to Ash Dykes. You haven't got to see the whole staircase, you've just got to see the next step. Thank you, Ash. And last but not least, we dropped it last week, Bellew Akinfenwa, the big season finale by Big Bellew Akinfenwa, the strongest footballer on the planet. There's so much here in this podcast. He's so charismatic. I keep saying it. It's impossible to listen to Bellew and not fall in love with him. Well, I do anyways. He's so funny. He's got so much magnetism, energy. He's just a great, great dude. And what we spoke about, a 2-year period mainly in his life when he went to Lithuania to play football. He kept getting cut from all the English teams he was on trial for. No. And yet he carried on because he had a dream. And at 5 years old, he told his mum, I am going to become a footballer. And he had to go to Lithuania to do it, which nobody else from Britain has ever really done. And he went and done it. And over there, he got the worst racial abuse he ever suffered his entire life, from opposing fans and home fans. You got monkey chants, you got N-word this, N-word that. They made songs about him to drive him away. And he wanted to come home. And he had a chat with his brother. And he went back to his apartment that night. He said, no fucking way am I letting a bunch of racists drive me out of town. Nah, that's not happening. I'm getting tingles saying this. God, we live in the podcast. Go back and listen to the podcast. He said, they're not doing it. He had two objectives in Lithuania. One, he was going to win something, and he did that. Two, he was going to convert the racists, an even bigger task, and he did it. He did both. Came back to England, had a glittering career, 20-odd year career, playing at Wembley, scoring in the cup final at Wembley Stadium. His book, From Hackney Marshes to the Hallowed Turf of Wembley Stadium. Wow, it doesn't get any better than that. It's an amazing podcast. Go back to listen to it. And that brings up round one. That was literally round one in a nutshell. And as I've said, I keep saying it, every single podcast, they've got so many lessons in there that people can listen to and learn from. So, have a sip of water. We're talking a lot. Go back to the questions. Lawrence, in the Trish Dixon interview, he talked about embracing his dark side. Is that something you can relate to? 100% Lawrence. Yes, it is. And also the Ash Dykes podcast, he talks about the wild man, the dark side, the wild man, whatever you want to call it. I definitely have a wild man inside me. I call it the beast. I mentioned earlier in this podcast about doing SAS Who Dares Wins. And I did the TV show because when I was a boxer, I had this beast inside me. And this beast got to come out every single day at the boxing gym, punching fuck out the bag, punching the pads, sparring. I got to unleash, even on the running track, I got to unleash this beastly side inside me. And I loved it. And that became me. And then when I had to retire from boxing, that part of me died, or so I thought. I thought it died. Then I became a professional wrestler. And don't get me wrong, I always train hard. Me, even the non-beast me, is still an animal. Not quite the beast, but he's an animal. He trains extremely hard, very dedicated, very driven. But as a wrestler, I basically become this person, and I miss that beast. I miss him sometimes. So I did SAS Who Dares Wins, and they like to have a reason why you do it. They will ask you, why do you want to do this? And that was the reason. 100%. Does the beast still live within me? Can I still go to the dark side? Can I still be that wild man? Again, I can't talk much about it because I'll get in trouble. But the beast came out. I mean, the beast, he lives in me still. Oh, goodness me. Goodness me. And the whole thing after he came out quite early, then the whole thing was like, okay, the beast is still here. Now let's learn to control him, which is a whole different thing that I've been working on the last few months. So, yes, Lawrence, the beast, I do embrace the dark side. I can relate to it. I think we all, and Ash Dyke says this, we all have a dark side. We all do. It's just, do we go to that limit where the dark side comes out? Do we push ourselves to that limit where we need to use the dark side, or are we very comfortable and happy in our nice, comfortable lives with our heating and our electricity and our cars and our this and that? We live a very comfortable life. So I think we all have that dark side. We have the wild man or woman and the beast inside us. It's just, do we go to that limit where we have to kind of drag it out? I urge everyone to get to that limit, because it's nice knowing that you have that beast inside you. It's just nice to know how to control it. I think Jordan Peterson, the psychologist, psychiatrist, psychologist, who's over social media everywhere, he has some very opinionated views. Some I like, some I don't like so much. And he says, and I'm gonna find this. I'm gonna damage the quote. I'm gonna butcher the quote.
You said that a harmless man is not a good man. A good man is a very dangerous man who has that under voluntary control. How should people become more dangerous?
Becoming more articulate is definitely, I would say, that's the primary array of weapons. So, I mean, physical prowess is something, and it's not nothing, that physical confidence that comes along with that as well. But the same thing replicated at the level of the ability to communicate.
So I haven't listened to the rest of that video, but yeah, a good man is a dangerous man. It's got it under control. I think that's, I like that. You know, I like to have the ability to you know, I guess, be aggressive or be a certain ilk of person and having it under control. I'd rather be that, and that's what I think I am now. I can be this person, but he's under control. Well, no, SAS aside, he's under control. Opposed to just being somebody that doesn't have it. So yeah, yes, Lawrence, I've got the dark side. Obviously, Trish Dixon has got the dark side as well. I think we all have a dark side, and I think when we have the dark side and we can control it, that's a very powerful thing. Yeah, great question, mate. Pavel, another question from Pavel. Which inspirational figure do I most admire? My mother. My mum is very inspirational to me. She raised me and my sisters on her own. As I mentioned, single parent, 5 kids, worked very hard, never took a handout, you know, sacrificed her life and her own dreams for us. Still, she had a brain aneurysm, which should have killed her stone dead. I've been to appointments with her where the doctors have said, it's a miracle you're alive. Not just alive, but able to do the things that she can do. She's a hero. So she is my inspiration. Famous people, Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali, again, my hero. What he did, he was the greatest. Probably wasn't the greatest boxer. That being said, people don't understand this. Muhammad Ali didn't box for 3 years in the middle of his career. They held the Vietnam War. He refused to fight the Vietnam War. He famously said, no Viet Cong ever called me. He was getting racially abused in his own country. It was in the 60s. America was really bad at the time. It's not great now. I live here. But back then, it was terrible. And he refused to go and fight brown people, as he called them, when he's treated like a second-class citizen in his own country. He said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And he was public enemy number one. The white people hated him. The black people hated him. They called him weak. He was the heavyweight champion of the world. And he made a stance. And right, wrong, or different, and obviously history proves that he was very right. Now he looks great. At the time, he was vilified for not going to war. They took away his passport. He couldn't travel. Took away his boxing license. He couldn't fight. He came back 3 years later. That was the second chapter of his career. And he was great. He won the world title 2 more times. So the back end of his career was the Joe Frazier trilogy, the George Foreman fight, the Rumble in the Jungle. But Those 3 years when he didn't box, he just fought Cleveland Williams in the greatest heavyweight performance of all time. Untouchable. Now, had he boxed in those 3 years, he'd have been the greatest boxer of all time because they were his 3 best years, which he didn't even fight in his mid to late 20s. So, Hamza Ali, everything he did inside the ring and outside the ring, there's a guy that used to get back up. There's a guy who's been physically, no, literally and metaphorically, been hit so hard, got knocked down so many times, always got back up. So Muhammad Ali. And the final one would be, in a very specific thing, Winston Churchill. Now, I spoke to Ken Kawasaki about Winston Churchill in a really emotive section of the podcast. Again, go back and listen to it. But Churchill is a guy that I am in awe of for his premiership ability over there, his premiership qualities during World War II. Very patriotic. And yeah, I mean, just how steadfast and strong and resolute and bold he was in the face of annihilation. He refused to give up. And I love that. There are lots of things about Winston Churchill, lots of bad and problematic things, which kind of dampens it a little bit. But his how stoic he was in almost complete annihilation. I am very inspired by that. So, last couple of questions before we wrap up for this podcast. What did I learn from the podcast? I learned that people that are successful are all very similar. And in so many of the podcasts, you'll hear me say, God, our careers are so similar, but they're so alike. Because successful people, all very similar. And success is a choice. Doesn't matter how big you are, how strong you are, how fast you can run. If you want to be successful, put the work in. Nobody's ever woken up. Usain Bolt said it best. He was like, he trained 4 years to run 9 seconds. And some people don't see results after 2 months and quit. It's like, no, it's hard work. Hard work. And there's another quote, The Rock. Greatness doesn't come from success. Greatness comes from consistency. Consistent hard work leads to success. Greatness will come. It's hard work. There's no substitute for it. No magic pill. You just wake up earlier, go to bed later. In that time, work hard. And I think everybody who I've had on the podcast, they've all worked hard. Sam Ward lost sight in his eye. His left eye now isn't as good. He can't see as well. So why is he better hockey player now than he was before? Why? Because he knew without his lack of sight, he's now got to be faster. So he trains harder. He's now got his body's got to be better. So he's now he's taken more control over his nutrition. He's now a better athlete. He's had to work harder. He's worked in different parts of his game. That's why he's scoring as many goals, more goals now with one good eye than he had with 2 eyes. It's all about hard work. That is literally the secret to success in life. I truly believe. Having listened to experiences of others, would you have changed anything in your own journey? I sound hypocritical now if I say yes, because as I mentioned earlier, people, Sam, again, when you make the worst thing happen to you, when you look at it, when you look at something, when the way you look at something, when it changes, the thing you look at changes. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to become world champion with my eye not get bad. I'm not quite there yet. I'm not quite where Sam is yet. I'll be very honest. I'm not quite okay with my eye being not great. I still bump into things on a daily basis. I still trip over things. I can't see down very well. When I'm wrestling, I still make mistakes. I can't see the ropes. When I'm running against the ropes, I can't see the ropes very well because of my eye. Some aspects of my life are very difficult because I'm visually impaired in my left eye. I haven't quite got the reward, haven't quite got the thing that I'm looking for. And I don't know what I'm looking for yet. I'm not too sure exactly what it is. I don't think it's money, although money would be great. I can't ever win the world title now, so I can't ever box again now. I'll come back to the Jake Paul section later. So I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know what that thing is, but I'm not quite where Sam is just yet. Although I am more humble as a person. I've definitely added way more humility to myself because of the eye. It's forced me to become more humble. Will I change anything? No, I think I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't. No, everything I've done has been the right thing at the time. Professionally, personally, I'll change a couple of things. I'll change a couple of things in my personal life. But professionally, everything I've done, I think, was the right thing at the time. And as I mentioned earlier, with the Brian Driscoll thing, always believe your best days are yet to come. We haven't always got to know the outcome or what's going to happen. We just work hard and do the right thing in that moment. And by doing so, hopefully other doors will open. Doors we couldn't even envisage. I had no idea I was going to do a podcast. I had no idea I was going to do a podcast. And I really, really enjoy it. I enjoy talking to people and learning from their own experiences. I had no idea I was going to do a fitness app. I had no idea. I love it. And I'll do this now for probably the rest of my life. I love inspiring people through fitness. So these are things I only got to because of what I did. I met Mitchell Greenway because of what I did. Had I taken right turn rather than left, I may never met her. So it's, no, I wouldn't have changed anything. I wouldn't. I'm pleased with the decisions that I made. Is an underlying theme for the podcast? Yeah, always get back up. That sounds cheesy. Always get back up. When times get tough, always get back up. If Sam Ward had not got back up, he would not have been another Olympian. Next year, injuries, touch God, and nothing happens. He'll be a 3-time Olympian, Sam Ward. And I hope he gets his medal that he so truly deserves. I really, really, really do. Tony Bellew won the world title at the 3rd time of asking. Could have jacked in after the first or the second. Second one, he got knocked out by Adonis Stevenson at the weight below. He went up a weight category and came back and had his amazing night at Goodison Park. His boyhood club became world champion and a national hero. Got his 2 fights with David Hay. Which financially secured his future. He fought Usyk for the undisputed title. Again, financially secured his future. If he'd have jacked it in after losing to Nathan Cleverly or getting knocked out by Adonis Stevenson, there's no financial future. There's no world title. There's no personal and professional dreams achieved. So the underlying theme, and I can say the same thing about everybody, always get back up. Last question. 2 questions left. When is Ogogo Fitness launching? I'm working unbelievably hard on that. As I mentioned this morning, I was researching female hormones, estrogen, testosterone, the effect it plays on women in their own lives. It's very, very, very important for women, testosterone is, as it is men. So yeah, I'm working really hard on this. I'm hoping to launch. I'm hoping for a soft launch in December, which is obviously next month now. I'm hoping for soft launch in December and going big in January. I hope I can meet the time frames and the deadlines. Something's out of my control, but I'm almost there with all the content. I've got 2 more days of filming, and it's going to be big, man. It's going to be special. It's going to be really, really special. Ogogo Fitness is going to change the face of fitness. You can't be everything to everyone. I keep hearing. I want to prove you can. I want to prove you can. I want to prove that you can be exactly that. You can be everything to everyone. Yes, you can. May not be that in phase 1. In phase 1, I've got 12 rounds. 12 rounds, 60 workouts of varying difficulty. Early ones, more stretching, more mobility. The hard ones, very hard, very explosive, and everything in between. I've got the customized workout builder where you can choose your own workout for millions and millions and millions of combinations. Okay, so you can create your own workout just for you. You can save it like a playlist on Spotify. And I'm going to hopefully do more workouts every month or 2. So eventually this will be an app for the whole family. Different style of training, different duration of training for the whole family. I'm going to get my nephews and nieces involved. So I'm going to do some kid workouts for your kids. It's going to be massive. So keep your eyes out. Head over to ogogofitness.com, OGOGOFITNESS.com. Sign up, register your interest, and be the first to know when Ogogo Fitness launches. It's going to change the world. And finally, Jake Paul fight. I want to beat him up so bad. I want to smash. He's a dickhead, isn't he? He's got that face. He might be the nicest guy in the world. I don't think he is, because every time I see him on camera, he's an arsehole. But he's got that face I just want to slap. He's just listen, I've said it before. I've said, Jake Paul, listen, mate, like, I've called you out now for 2 years. 2 years. I've watched you fight bum after bum after bum, has been after TV star. You never fought a real fighter. You've never fought a real boxer, Jake. You've earned your money, doing your stuff, doing your thing. Now the whole world thinks you're a dickhead. The whole world does. The only way now you can prove yourself, prove to the whole world, and prove to yourself that you're not just a jumped up little arsehole, is fight a real boxer. Mate, I can barely see in my left eye. Haven't been in the boxing gym in like 6 years. Right? But I will still smash you up. I will still bash you up December, Jan, Feb, March. You name the date, you name the place, you name the weight that you want me to come to the ring at, and I will do it. And I will smash you up, Jake. As far as I see it, the only way you can get any respect from anybody in the boxing game, because we all think you're an arsehole, is to fight and beat a real boxer. I'm here. I'm waiting. Let's do it. So, that is the end of episode 1 of season 2. We are back. We are back with a massive, massive season. Loads more really inspiring stories. We've got sport. We've got life. We've got business. We've got music. We've got acting. We've got loads of different people coming up in this series. Loads of really inspiring stories. Really are going to give you lots of hope in your own lives. I'm sure they are. Next week, we have Martin Perry. Martin Perry is somebody, since interviewing him on a few months ago, we've become really close as people. Martin Perry, he is disabled, hopefully next year, be a Paralympian. He's going for Paris 2024. He's top 10 in the world. Table tennis player. He's got no hands. He's got no hands and one leg. You think, how does he play tennis? Mate, check him out. Martin Perry. I think his Instagram is Perry94. He is boom, boom, boom. He's unbelievable. He's so inspiring, so funny. Like, you're gonna love next week, okay? Next week you're gonna love the podcast. He's such a nice guy, so warm. And one little teaser I'm gonna say: Martin Perry was born with no hands and one leg. He genuinely believes he's the luckiest man in the world, and that's in wrestling. We say that's a shoot. A shoot in wrestling means that's real. That's a shoot. That's real. The guy wakes up every single day and he's the luckiest man in the world. That's what he truly believes. And when you see him, I've met his lovely wife. She's pregnant. He's soon going to be a father. The Paralympics next year. When you spend time with him, you look at him and you go, I want to be like you. Like, I literally want to be like you. I wish I was more like you. He's an amazing guy. You're going to love next week's episode. It's so inspiring. So, tune in next week. Every Tuesday, we drop a brand new episode of Getting Back Up. Thank you so much for being part of this journey. Share this episode with anybody that you know, like, or think is going to benefit from hearing these really inspiring stories. Like the podcast. Share it. Subscribe. Be the first person to know when this drops. We're on Apple. We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube. Keep coming back every single week and getting inspired. See you next week.